The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Mitchell Montgomery's corner office on the 42nd floor. But he barely noticed as he stared at the woman standing in front of his mahogany desk, with her resignation letter clutched in trembling fingers. "You cannot be serious right now," he said, his voice low and controlled despite the chaos erupting inside his chest. "Willow, we are in the middle of the biggest acquisition this company has ever seen." Willow Matthews met his gaze with those impossibly green eyes that had been driving him to distraction for the past 18 months. She was his chief financial officer, the smartest person he had ever worked with, and the only woman who had ever made him forget about spreadsheets and profit margins long enough to wonder what her hair would feel like between his fingers. "I know the timing is terrible," she said quietly. "But I cannot keep doing this to myself, Mitchell." He stood up from his leather chair, his 6'3" frame suddenly making the spacious office feel smaller. "Doing what to yourself? You are at the top of your career. Everyone in this industry knows your name. The Wall Street Journal just called you a financial genius. Working beside you every single day and pretending I do not feel what I feel." The words came out in a rush, and her cheeks flushed pink. "You are going to break my heart if I stay." "It is already happening, piece by piece, every time you smile at me like I matter and then date someone else. Every time you touch my shoulder when you are excited about a deal closing. Every time you bring me coffee exactly how I like it without me asking." Mitchell felt like someone had knocked all the air from his lungs. He walked around the desk slowly, giving her time to move away if she wanted to. She did not. "What did you just say?" he asked, his voice rough. Willow laughed, but there were tears in her eyes. "I just quit my dream job and admitted I have feelings for my boss. I think I have said enough humiliating things for one day. You think I would let your heart break?" He reached out and gently took the resignation letter from her hands, crumpling it without looking at it. "Willow, I would protect it with my life instead." Her breath caught. "What?" "I have been in love with you since the day you walked into the conference room and told me my projections for the European market were garbage," he said, allowing himself to finally touch her face, his thumb brushing away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. "I thought I was being professional. I thought I was doing the right thing by keeping my distance because you work for me. But if you are standing here telling me you feel even a fraction of what I feel, then I am done pretending." "Mitchell." His name on her lips sounded like a prayer. "You have dated 3 different women in the time I have worked here. Coffee dates that never went anywhere because none of them were you," he said. "Dinners where I spent the whole time wishing I was working late at the office instead, because at least then I would get to see you. I stopped seeing anyone 6 months ago because I could not take the pretending anymore. I thought you and Rebecca from marketing had one meeting about a campaign that somehow turned into office gossip," he interrupted. "Willow, there has been no one. There has only been you, driving me crazy in your pencil skirts and heels, arguing with me about risk assessment and making me want things I convinced myself I could not have." She looked up at him with wonder in her eyes. "This is insane. I came in here prepared to walk away from everything. And I am asking you to stay," he said. "Not as my employee. I will have HR transfer you to an equivalent position in a different department tomorrow, or I will help you find something even better at another company if that is what you want. But tonight, right now, I need you to know that your heart is safe with me. It has always been safe with me." The first kiss was soft, tentative, like they were both afraid the moment might shatter. But then, Willow made a small sound in the back of her throat and wrapped her arms around his neck, and Mitchell forgot about being careful. He forgot about everything except the way she felt pressed against him, the way she tasted like the peppermint tea she always drank in the afternoons, the way 18 months of wanting came crashing down around them both. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Willow rested her forehead against his chest. "What are we doing?" "Something we should have done a long time ago," he said, running his fingers through her dark hair the way he had imagined so many times. "If you will give me a chance." "I am terrified," she admitted. "You are Mitchell Montgomery. You are on Forbes lists and magazine covers. You have built an empire in commercial real estate development from nothing. Women throw themselves at you everywhere you go. And I am asking you, Willow Matthews, certified public accountant who corrects my math and steals my lunch from the office fridge when you think I am not looking, to have dinner with me," he said. "A real dinner. A date where I pick you up at your apartment and take you somewhere nice and spend the whole evening learning everything about you that has nothing to do with work." She laughed, the sound making his heart do something complicated in his chest. "I only steal your lunch when you forget to eat it, and I know it will go to waste." "Tomorrow night," he said, not a question. "Say yes." "Yes," she whispered. "But if this goes wrong—" "It will not go wrong," he promised, kissing her again because now that he had started, stopping seemed impossible. "I have never been more sure of anything in my life, and I have bet hundreds of millions of dollars on deals that made my lawyers sweat." The rain continued to fall outside, but inside Mitchell's office, something had shifted. When Willow finally left for the evening, her resignation letter in the trash and her lips still swollen from his kisses, Mitchell stood at the window and smiled at his reflection. He had built Montgomery development from the ground up, after his father had lost everything in bad investments when Mitchell was 19. He had worked 3 jobs while getting his business degree, slept 4 hours a night, and turned a single rundown property into a company worth $800 million. He had never let himself want anything he could not achieve through sheer determination and smart planning. But Willow had slipped past every defense he had built, and now that he had admitted the truth, there was no going back. The next evening, Mitchell stood outside Willow's apartment building in downtown Chicago at exactly 7 o'clock. He had reservations at Alinea, had his driver waiting with the car, and was wearing the navy suit Willow had once mentioned made his eyes look impossibly blue during a conversation she probably did not remember. He remembered everything about her. When she opened the door, his breath caught. She was wearing a deep green dress that matched her eyes, her dark hair falling in waves past her shoulders instead of pulled back in the bun she wore to the office. She looked nervous and beautiful and absolutely perfect. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi yourself." He offered his arm. "You look stunning." "You clean up pretty well too," she teased, but her hand shook slightly as she took his arm. "I have to tell you something before we go." His stomach dropped. "Okay. I have not been on a real date in over a year," she said. "The last guy I saw seriously told me I cared more about my career than building a relationship, and he was probably right. I threw myself into work after that, into proving I could make it in a male-dominated field, into being the best at what I do." "Willow, let me finish," she interrupted. "I need you to know that if I am doing this, if I am taking this risk with you, I am all in. I do not do things halfway. And that terrifies me because you are my boss, and you are this incredibly successful, attractive man who could have anyone. And I am just the woman I have been falling in love with for 18 months, Mitchell said firmly. "You are not just anything, Willow. You are extraordinary. And for the record, I have not been on a date in 6 months because every woman I met was not you." She smiled then, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. "Okay, good talk." Dinner was incredible, not because of the 3 Michelin star food or the impeccable service, but because for the first time since Willow had walked into his company, Mitchell got to just be with her without the weight of professionalism between them. They talked about everything: her childhood in Wisconsin with her parents and two brothers, his struggle to rebuild after his father's financial disaster, her love of terrible reality television, his secret addiction to cooking shows despite barely being able to make toast. "I cannot believe you watch Top Chef," Willow said, laughing over her dessert. "You once told me you consider sleep a waste of time." "I watch it at the gym in the mornings," he admitted. 4:30 to 6 every day, treadmill and competitive cooking. It is a whole thing." 4:30 in the morning, she repeated. "You are insane." "Driven," he corrected. "There is a difference." "Is there, though?" She tilted her head, studying him. "Mitchell, when was the last time you took a vacation?" He thought about it. "I went to Miami for a conference 8 months ago." "That does not count." "I stayed an extra day. Still does not count." Willow leaned forward. "Have you ever just gone somewhere with no agenda? No meetings, no deals, no work at all?" The honest answer was no. After his father had lost everything when Mitchell was 19, after they had lost the house and moved into a cramped apartment, after watching his mother cry over bills she could not pay, Mitchell had made himself a promise. He would never be that vulnerable again. He would build something so solid, so successful that no one could ever take it away. That drive had cost him relationships, sleep, and apparently vacations. "I take time off," he said, but it sounded weak even to his own ears. "When?" "I am taking time off right now," he pointed out. "It is 8:30 on a Thursday night and I am at dinner instead of reviewing contracts." Willow reached across the table and took his hand, her fingers warm against his. "I am not judging you. I am the same way, remember. I just want to make sure that if we do this, we both know what we are getting into. Two workaholics trying to build a relationship while running a company." "I will make time for you," Mitchell said seriously. "I will make time for us. That is a promise." "And I will do the same," she agreed. "But we have to be honest with each other. About work, about what we need, about everything." "Deal." He signaled for the check, then looked at her with heat in his eyes. "Now can I take you home and kiss you goodnight properly?" Her cheeks flushed. "I think that can be arranged." The drive back to her apartment was charged with tension, the good kind that made Mitchell's heart race. When they reached her door, Willow turned to him with a mixture of nervousness and desire in her expression. "You want to come in?" she asked. "Just for a little while. I make really good coffee." He should say no. He should take things slow, be a gentleman, not rush into anything that might complicate what they were building. "I would love to," he said instead, because slow and careful had never been his strong suit when it came to things he wanted. Her apartment was smaller than he expected, a one-bedroom in a renovated building with exposed brick and large windows. It was decorated simply but warmly, with bookshelves lining one wall and plants clustered on the windowsills. This was Willow's space, her sanctuary, and she was letting him into it. "Coffee will take a few minutes," she said, moving toward the kitchen. "Make yourself comfortable." Mitchell looked at the books instead, reading the spines. Financial theory textbooks next to mystery novels, next to a worn copy of Pride and Prejudice. A framed photo showed Willow with two tall men who had to be her brothers, all three of them laughing at something off camera. Another photo showed an older couple at what looked like a wedding, probably her parents. "They want to meet you," Willow said from the kitchen doorway, making him turn. "My family. My mom called me 3 times today after I told her what happened yesterday." "You told your family about me." "I tell my mom everything," she admitted. "She knew I had feelings for you before I was really ready to admit it to myself. She is probably planning our wedding already, which I know is completely crazy since we just had our first date." Mitchell crossed to her in 3 long strides and pulled her close. "It is not crazy. I want to meet them. I want to know everything about you, Willow. The big things and the small things and everything in between." She looked up at him with those green eyes that haunted his dreams. "You are really good at saying the right things. I am only saying what I mean." He kissed her, slow and deep, pouring 18 months of wanting into it. She melted against him, her fingers tangling in his hair, and the coffee was forgotten as they stumbled toward her couch. They did not sleep together that night. Mitchell was determined to do this right, to show Willow that she was more than just attraction or a convenient relationship. But they spent hours on her couch, talking and kissing and learning the geography of each other, and when he finally left at 2 in the morning, he felt like a teenager with his first crush. The office the next day was complicated. Mitchell had already spoken with their head of HR and the legal team about the situation. Having a relationship with a direct report was against company policy, which meant changes had to be made. "I want to be clear," he told Willow in a private meeting that morning with HR present. "You are not being demoted or punished in any way. We are creating a new position, Chief Strategy Officer, that reports directly to the board instead of to me. You will have the same salary, the same benefits, and honestly, probably more autonomy than you have now." Willow listened carefully, her professional mask in place. "And if I prefer to stay as CFO and we end the personal relationship?" The question hurt, but Mitchell kept his expression neutral. "Then you stay as CFO and we pretend yesterday never happened." "Your job is not contingent on dating me, Willow. It never could be." She nodded slowly, then looked at the HR director. "Can I have some time to think about it?" "Of course," the woman said. "Take the weekend. We can reconvene on Monday." After the HR director left, Willow turned to Mitchell with worry in her eyes. "I do not want special treatment." "You are not getting special treatment," he said. "You are getting a promotion to a position that has needed to be filled for 6 months. The board has been pressuring me to hire someone external for this exact role. You are the most qualified person in the company." "But the timing is coincidental," he interrupted. "Yes, we are accelerating the timeline because of our relationship, but the job is real. The need is real. And you would be incredible at it." She studied him for a long moment. "If I say yes to the job, I am saying yes to us. I know. And if this does not work out between us, things will be incredibly awkward." "It will work out," Mitchell said with absolute certainty. "I do not fail at things that matter to me, Willow, and you matter more than anything." That weekend, Mitchell did something he had not done in years. He turned off his phone on Saturday afternoon and took Willow to Navy Pier. They ate overpriced fare food, rode the Ferris wheel like tourists, and walked along the lake until the sun set in streaks of orange and pink. "This is nice," Willow said, leaning against him as they watched the water. "I forget sometimes that Chicago is beautiful." "I forget sometimes that there is more to life than work," Mitchell admitted. "Thank you for reminding me. We are quite a pair," she said with a soft laugh. "Both of us so focused on success that we forgot to actually live." He turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "I am living right now. With you. This is what living feels like." She kissed him as the wind whipped off the lake, and Mitchell thought that maybe his father's financial disaster 18 years ago had been leading him exactly here. To this moment, this woman, this feeling of coming home. On Monday, Willow accepted the position of Chief Strategy Officer. The official announcement went out company-wide, and Mitchell watched with pride as their employees congratulated her. She was respected, admired, and now she was his. They kept the relationship quiet at first, not hiding it but not advertising it either. Mitchell would catch her eye across conference rooms and see a secret smile. She would touch his hand briefly when passing him documents. It was torture and perfect all at once. 3 weeks into dating, Mitchell met Willow's family. Her parents, Grant and Patricia Matthews, lived in a comfortable house in Madison, Wisconsin, with a garden her mother clearly adored and a workshop in the garage where her father built furniture as a hobby. Her brothers, William and Wesley, showed up with their wives and a combined total of 4 children under the age of 6. "So you are the boss," Grant said, shaking Mitchell's hand with a grip that was probably meant to be intimidating. "The one who has had my daughter working 80-hour weeks." "Dad," Willow said warningly. "I am also the one who is in love with your daughter and wants your blessing to keep dating her," Mitchell said honestly, meeting Grant's eyes without flinching. The older man's expression softened slightly. That was a good answer. Dinner was loud and chaotic and wonderful. The kids ran around the house shrieking while the adults tried to have conversations. Patricia grilled Mitchell on everything from his intentions to his mother's health to whether he wanted children someday. Willow's brothers told embarrassing stories about her childhood, and she retaliated with stories about them. "She was always the smart one," William said fondly. "Straight A's, scholarships, the whole deal. We used to tease her about caring more about homework than fun." "She still cares more about spreadsheets than fun," Wesley added with a grin. "No offense, sis." "I have plenty of fun," Willow protested, her cheeks pink. "I just happen to also be good at my job." "You are exceptional at your job," Mitchell corrected. "And for the record, she does know how to have fun. She beat me at mini golf last weekend." "You let me win," Willow said. "I absolutely did not," he argued. "You destroyed me. It was humiliating." The family laughed, and Mitchell felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. This was what he had been missing his whole adult life, chasing success and building his company. Family dinners and teasing and belonging. Later, when they were doing dishes together in the kitchen, Patricia cornered him. "My daughter does not give her heart easily," she said quietly. "She has been hurt before by men who did not appreciate what they had." "I know what I have," Mitchell said seriously. "I will spend every day proving it to her." Patricia smiled. "Good, because if you break her heart, I know where you work and I have 3 sons-in-law who are all very protective." "2 sons-in-law," Mitchell corrected gently. "I am not married to Willow yet." "Yet," Patricia repeated with a knowing look. "I like you, Mitchell Montgomery." The drive back to Chicago that night felt different. Willow fell asleep against his shoulder in the passenger seat, and Mitchell drove with one hand on the wheel and one hand holding hers, thinking about futures and forever. 2 months into their relationship, the acquisition deal that had been in progress when Willow tried to quit finally closed. Montgomery Development acquired premier properties for $600 million, instantly making the company a major player in the national commercial real estate market. The celebration party was held at a downtown hotel ballroom, with investors and employees and press all mingling. Mitchell gave a speech thanking the team, and his eyes kept finding Willow in the crowd. She was wearing a black dress that made her look like every fantasy he had ever had, her hair up in a style that showed off her neck. "You did it," she said when he finally escaped the crowds and found her by the windows overlooking the city. "Your father would be so proud." Mitchell stiffened. He rarely talked about his father, about the shame and anger and complicated love he still carried. "My father would have lost this company in a poker game." "Maybe," Willow said softly, "but he also taught you what not to do. He showed you the importance of being careful, of building something solid. You took his mistakes and made yourself stronger." "I spent so many years being angry at him," Mitchell admitted, "for being reckless, for not thinking about me and Mom, for choosing his addiction over his family." "You are allowed to be angry and still love him," she said. "Feelings are complicated." He pulled her close, not caring who might see. "How did you get so wise?" Therapy, she said with a small smile. Lots and lots of therapy after my last relationship ended badly. They had talked about her ex a few times, a lawyer named Derek who had wanted a wife who would stay home and host dinners, not a woman with ambitions and goals. He had given her an ultimatum, the job or him, and she had chosen the job without hesitation. I am glad you chose your career, Mitchell said. Otherwise you might never have come to work for me. With you, she corrected. I work with you now, remember, different reporting structure. Best decision I ever made, he said, kissing her temple. Well, second best. First was admitting I love you. You have not actually said that, Willow pointed out. Not the words. Mitchell felt panic flash through him. Had he really never said it out loud? Willow Matthews, I am completely in love with you. Head over heels, cannot imagine my life without you, in love with you. I love you too, she said, her eyes shining. I think I have loved you since you approved my proposal to restructure the European division and then took me to lunch to celebrate. That was 5 months into your employment, Mitchell said. I know, she laughed. We are both very slow on the uptake, apparently. The party continued around them, but they stood together looking out at Chicago glittering below, and Mitchell thought about how much his life had changed in just a few months. He had everything he had worked for, the company, the success, the respect, but none of it mattered as much as the woman in his arms. 4 months into dating, they took their first vacation together. Just a long weekend in northern Michigan, staying at a bed and breakfast near the lake. Mitchell had never been more nervous in his life. I do not know how to relax, he admitted the first morning as they sat on the porch drinking coffee and watching the sunrise. I feel like I should be doing something. You are doing something, Willow said. You are sitting here with me. I mean something productive. This is productive, she insisted. You are recharging. You are spending time with your girlfriend. You are learning that the world does not fall apart when you are not working every second. He tried. He really did. They went hiking, explored small towns, ate at local restaurants. But Mitchell found himself checking his phone constantly, reading emails, responding to messages. On the second day, Willow took his phone and hid it. Willow, I need that, he said, trying not to panic. You need to breathe, she countered. You need to trust that your company can survive 2 days without you micromanaging everything. I do not micromanage, she raised an eyebrow. You called the office 3 times yesterday to check on things, important things. Mitchell. She took his hands in hers. I understand the fear. I really do. I know what your father's mistakes cost you and your mother. I know why you feel like you cannot ever let your guard down, but you are going to burn out if you keep going like this. I am fine, he said automatically. You are exhausted, she said gently. I see it in your eyes every morning. You are running on caffeine and sheer willpower, and it is not sustainable. He wanted to argue, but the words would not come. She was right. He knew she was right. He had been pushing himself to the breaking point for so long that he did not remember what normal felt like. I do not know how to stop, he admitted quietly. The fear is always there. What if I let up for 1 second and everything falls apart? Then you have me, Willow said. And your entire team of brilliant people who can handle things. And a company that is solid and successful because of all the work you have already done. You do not have to carry everything alone anymore. Something cracked open in Mitchell's chest, some wall he had been maintaining for years. I am scared of losing it all, I know. I am scared of turning into my father. You will not, she said with absolute certainty. You are too careful, too smart, too aware of the risks, but you also cannot spend your whole life being afraid. That is not living, Mitchell. That is just surviving. He kissed her then, pouring all his fear and gratitude and love into it. How did I get so lucky to find you? You did not find me, she pointed out. I walked into your office and told you your European projections were garbage, remember? Best day of my life, he said, and meant it. The rest of the weekend, Mitchell tried. He left his phone hidden. He focused on Willow, on the quiet beauty of the lake, on actually resting. It was hard, maybe the hardest thing he had done in years, but every time the anxiety started to creep in, Willow was there to ground him. 6 months into their relationship, Mitchell took Willow to meet his mother. Eleanor Montgomery lived in a modest condo in Evanston, decorated with photos of Mitchell at every age and furniture that was worn but comfortable. She answered the door with flour on her hands and a smile on her face. "You must be Willow," she said warmly. "I have been dying to meet you. Mitchell talks about you constantly." "Mom," Mitchell said, his ears going red. "What you do?" Eleanor ushered them inside. "I am making my famous chocolate cake for dessert. Mitchell, set the table, please." Dinner was easier than Mitchell had expected. His mother told stories about his childhood, about how driven he had been even as a boy. "He was always building things," she said. "Lego towers, blanket forts, business plans when he was 14. "Business plans at 14? Willow asked, glancing at Mitchell. "He was determined to make back the money we lost," Eleanor said, her expression going soft with old pain. "After his father and I divorced, after everything fell apart, Mitchell took it upon himself to fix it." "Mom, we do not need to—" "Yes, we do," Eleanor interrupted gently. "Willow should know who you are, sweetheart. All of you, not just the successful businessmen." Mitchell looked at Willow, who squeezed his hand under the table. "It is okay," she said softly, so Eleanor told the story. How Mitchell's father had developed a gambling problem that spiraled out of control. How they had lost their house, their savings, everything. How the divorce had been messy and painful. How Mitchell had worked himself to the bone to help pay bills, to put himself through college, to build something from nothing. "He gave me money from every paycheck," Eleanor said, tears in her eyes. "Even when he was 19 and working 3 jobs and barely sleeping. He would show up with groceries, with cash, with this fierce determination that we were going to be okay." "I could not let you struggle alone," Mitchell said roughly. "You were a child," Eleanor said. "It was not your responsibility. You are my mother. Of course it was my responsibility." Willow had tears on her cheeks, and she looked at Mitchell like he had hung the moon. "You are incredible," she whispered. After dinner, Eleanor pulled Willow aside while Mitchell was loading the dishwasher. "He needs you," she said quietly. "He has spent so long taking care of everyone else that he has forgotten how to let someone take care of him." "I am trying," Willow said, "but he is stubborn." "Montgomery men usually are," Eleanor said with a smile, "but I can see how much he loves you. I have never seen him this happy, this relaxed. You are good for him." "He is good for me too," Willow admitted. "I was so focused on proving myself that I forgot there was more to life. Mitchell reminds me every day that success means nothing if you do not have someone to share it with." Eleanor hugged her. "Welcome to the family, sweetheart." On the drive home, Mitchell was quiet. Finally, he said, "Thank you for listening to all of that. I know it was a lot." "It was not too much," Willow said. "It helped me understand you better, why you push yourself so hard. Why the company means everything to you." "The company does not mean everything to me," he corrected. "Not anymore. You do." 8 months into their relationship, Mitchell knew he was going to marry Willow Matthews. The realization hit him during a completely mundane moment. She was in his apartment kitchen making breakfast, wearing one of his shirts and singing off-key to the radio, and he thought, "This is what I want for the rest of my life." He started looking at rings that week. Finding the perfect one took another month. He visited a dozen jewelers before he found a platinum band with a princess-cut diamond and smaller emeralds on either side to match her eyes. It cost more than his first car, his first 3 cars actually, and he did not care at all. The proposal needed to be perfect. Willow was not the type for grand public gestures, but she deserved something memorable and romantic. Mitchell planned it for their 10-month anniversary, back at Navy Pier where they had spent their first real day together. He convinced her they were just going for a walk, reprising their earlier date. It was a Saturday evening in early autumn, the air crisp and the city glowing as the sun went down. They rode the Ferris wheel again, and at the top, when all of Chicago spread out below them like a promise, Mitchell got down on one knee in the small enclosed car. "Willow Matthews," he said, his voice shaking with nerves and excitement. 10 months ago, you walked into my office and told me I was going to break your heart. You were brave enough to risk everything for a chance at something real. Now I am asking you to risk it all again. Marry me. Let me spend the rest of my life protecting your heart, loving you, building a life with you. I promise I will work less and live more. I promise I will make you laugh and bring you coffee and argue with you about financial projections when you are wrong, which is almost never. I promise to be the man you deserve every single day. Please say yes." Willow was crying, her hands pressed to her mouth. "Yes," she gasped. "Yes, of course, yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, and then he was kissing her as the Ferris wheel carried them back down to earth. When they finally broke apart, both grinning like idiots, Mitchell felt like his heart might actually burst from happiness. "I cannot believe you proposed on a Ferris wheel," Willow said, laughing and crying at the same time. "This is so cheesy." "You love cheesy," he said. "You watch The Bachelor, only ironically, you cry during every episode. That is beside the point." She looked at the ring, the diamonds catching the lights. "Mitchell, this is beautiful." "You are beautiful," he said. "You are everything." They called their families that night. Alina cried happy tears. Patricia screamed so loud they had to hold the phone away from their ears. Grant said he was pleased as long as Mitchell promised to make an honest woman of his daughter soon. Willow's brothers made jokes and welcomed Mitchell to the family officially. At the office on Monday, the news spread like wildfire. Mitchell and Willow had not been hiding their relationship, but the engagement made it official in a way that felt different. People congratulated them in the halls, sent emails with well wishes, and generally seemed genuinely happy for them. "The CEO and the CSO," their head of marketing said with a grin. "It is like a corporate fairy tale. Please do not pitch that to the press," Mitchell said, but he was smiling. Planning the wedding turned out to be more complicated than closing a $600 million acquisition. Willow wanted something simple and elegant. Mitchell wanted to give her the world. They compromised on a ceremony at a vineyard in Michigan with 150 guests, scheduled for the following spring. The months leading up to the wedding were a blur of cake tastings and flower arrangements and seating charts. Mitchell learned more about linens and color palettes than he ever wanted to know. But every time he started to feel overwhelmed, he would look at Willow arguing with the florist about rose versus peony, laughing at the absurdity of appetizer choices, trying on dresses with her mother and crying happy tears, and remember what this was all for. They were building a life together. 1 month before the wedding, Mitchell's father reached out. An email, short and to the point, saying he had heard about the engagement and wanted to meet. Mitchell stared at the message for an hour before showing it to Willow. "What do you want to do?" she asked carefully. "I have not seen him in 12 years, Mitchell said. "Not since I was 23 and he asked me for money to pay off a debt. Did you give it to him?" "No." The guilt still sat heavy in his chest. "I told him he needed to get help, and until he did, I could not enable him anymore. He called me selfish, and we have not spoken since." Willow took his hand. This is your decision. I will support you whatever you choose. Mitchell thought about it for 2 days. Finally, he responded to the email and agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown. He did not tell his mother. He did not want to get her hopes up if it went badly. His father looked older than Mitchell remembered. Grayer, thinner, with lines around his eyes that spoke of hard living. But he was sober, his eyes were clear, and his hands were steady, and there was a sadness in his expression that made Mitchell's throat tight. "Thank you for coming," Richard Montgomery said quietly. "I was not sure you would." "I almost did not," Mitchell admitted. "What do you want, Dad?" "To apologize," Richard said, "for everything I put you and your mother through, for being weak and selfish, for not being the father you deserved." Mitchell wanted to hold onto his anger. He had carried it for so long that it felt like part of him. But looking at his father now, sober and broken and trying, he felt it start to crack. "I worked so hard to be nothing like you," he said roughly. "Every decision I made, every risk I took was because I was terrified of ending up where you did." "I know," Richard said. "I see that. I have been following your career from a distance. You built an incredible company, Mitchell. You became everything I failed to be. That does not make up for what happened." "I know," Richard repeated. "I am not asking for forgiveness. I do not deserve it, but I am 5 years sober now. I go to meetings every day. I have a sponsor and a job, and I am trying to be better. And when I heard you were getting married, I thought maybe I could at least tell you I am proud of you, even if I have no right to be." Mitchell felt tears burning his eyes. "You could have reached out years ago. Mom struggled for so long, we both did." "I was ashamed," Richard said simply, "and I was not ready. I had to hit rock bottom before I could start climbing back up. But I am here now, and I wanted you to know that I am trying." 5 years sober," Mitchell repeated. "That is incredible, Dad." "It is one day at a time," Richard said. "But I have not had a bet or a drink in 1,825 days." They talked for 2 hours. Mitchell told his father about Willow, about the company, about his life. Richard shared about his recovery, his job as a mechanic, his small apartment. It was not perfect. There was too much history, too much pain between them, but it was a start. "I do not know if I can have you at the wedding," Mitchell said honestly. "Mom will be there, and I do not want to upset her." "I understand," Richard said. "But maybe someday we could try this again. Get coffee. Talk. I miss so much of your life, Mitchell. I would like to know the man you have become." Mitchell left the coffee shop feeling lighter and heavier all at once. When he got home, Willow took one look at his face and wrapped him in her arms. "How did it go?" she asked. "He is sober," Mitchell said into her hair. 5 years. That is wonderful." "I do not know if I can forgive him," Mitchell admitted, "for everything he did, for not being there." "You do not have to forgive him right now," Willow said gently. "Or ever if you do not want to, but it sounds like he is trying to make amends. That is worth something." "I keep thinking about how angry I was at him for so long," Mitchell said. "How that anger drove me to build everything I have. And I am grateful for what I have built, but I am also tired of being angry." "Then let it go," she said. "Not for him. For you, you deserve to be free of it." He married Willow on a perfect spring day with the vineyard in full bloom around them. She wore a lace dress that made her look like something out of a dream, and Mitchell forgot every word of his vows when he saw her walking down the aisle on her father's arm. He improvised instead, telling her how much he loved her, how she had changed his life, how he promised to spend every day earning her trust and love. Willow cried through her own vows, stumbling over the words but making everyone laugh and cry with her. She promised to love him through the busy seasons and the quiet ones, to call him out when he was working too hard, to be his partner in every sense of the word. Eleanor cried in the front row. Willow's whole family cheered when the officiant pronounced them husband and wife. And when Mitchell kissed his bride, he thought about how close he had come to missing this, to staying behind his walls and his work and his fear. Thank God for that day 18 months ago, when Willow had been brave enough to walk into his office with a resignation letter. Thank God she had said the words that changed everything. "You are going to break my heart." And thank God he had been brave enough to promise he would protect it instead. The reception was perfect. They danced until Mitchell's feet hurt in his dress shoes. They ate cake and laughed at the toasts and snuck away for quiet moments, just the two of them. When it was time to leave, sparklers lit their path to the vintage car waiting to take them to the hotel. "Mrs. Montgomery," Mitchell said as they settled into the back seat. "I am keeping Matthews professionally," Willow said, but she was smiling. "Willow Montgomery Matthews has a nice ring to it, though." "My wife," he said, testing the words. "I like the sound of that." "Me too." She leaned against him, tired and happy. "I cannot believe we pulled off a wedding in 3 months. We can do anything together," he said, kissing her temple. "We are terrifyingly competent," she laughed. "We really are." The honeymoon was 2 weeks in Italy. Mitchell had arranged everything: flights, hotels, tours. He had actually unplugged completely, leaving the company in the capable hands of his executive team. It was terrifying and liberating all at once. They explored Rome and Florence and Venice. They ate incredible food and drank wine and made love in hotel rooms with views of ancient cities. Willow taught Mitchell how to slow down, how to enjoy moments instead of rushing through them. Mitchell taught Willow how to be spontaneous, how to not plan every single detail. "I could stay here forever," Willow said one evening as they sat on their hotel balcony in Tuscany, watching the sun set over rolling hills. "We can come back," Mitchell promised. "Every year if you want." "Every year," she repeated. "I like the sound of that." When they returned to Chicago, reality settled back in, but it was different now. Mitchell made a conscious effort to leave the office by 6 most nights. He and Willow had standing dinner dates twice a week where they did not talk about work at all. He started seeing a therapist to work through his issues with his father and his fear of failure. It was not perfect. There were still nights when he worked too late and mornings when Willow had to physically drag him away from his laptop. There were arguments about work-life balance and whose turn it was to cook dinner. But they were building something real, something that mattered more than quarterly earnings or market share. 6 months after the wedding, Willow came home from a doctor's appointment with news that made Mitchell's heart stop. "I am pregnant," she said, her voice shaking. "I know we were not trying yet, but apparently my birth control failed," and Mitchell kissed her, cutting off the anxious rambling. "A baby," he said, wonder in his voice. "We are having a baby. You are not upset, are you kidding?" He picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing. "This is incredible. We are going to be parents." "We are going to be terrible parents," Willow said, but she was smiling. "2 workaholics with no idea what they are doing." "Then we will figure it out together," Mitchell said. "Like everything else." The pregnancy was difficult. Willow had terrible morning sickness that lasted all day for the first trimester. She was exhausted and emotional and still insisted on working full days at the office. Mitchell drove her crazy by trying to coddle her, and she drove him crazy by refusing to slow down. "You need to rest," he said for the 100th time. "I need to finish this proposal," she countered, not looking up from her laptop. "Willow, Mitchell." She mimicked his serious tone. "I am pregnant, not helpless. I can still do my job." "No one said you could not. You are hovering," she interrupted. "I love you, but you need to stop hovering." He tried. He really did. But watching the woman he loved more than anything carry his child while still running herself ragged made him want to wrap her in bubble wrap and hide her away from the world. When Willow was 7 months pregnant, Mitchell made a decision. He promoted his second-in-command, Daniel Harrison, to co-CEO. The board pushed back at first, concerned about splitting leadership, but Mitchell was firm. "I am not leaving the company," he explained. "But I am also not going to miss my child's life because I am too busy chasing the next deal." Daniel is brilliant. He has been with Montgomery Development since the beginning. This is the right move. With Daniel sharing the CEO responsibilities, Mitchell found himself with time. Actual time to attend birthing classes with Willow, to paint the nursery, to read books about fatherhood and freak out about everything that could go wrong. "You are going to be a great dad," Willow said one night as they lay in bed, his hand on her swollen belly feeling the baby kick. "What if I am not?" The fear had been eating at him. "What if I mess up?" "Then we will fix it together," she said. "Parenting is not about being perfect, Mitchell. It is about showing up and trying and loving them no matter what." "I can do that," he said. "I am good at showing up." "You are excellent at showing up," she agreed. "You showed up for me. You showed up for your mom. You will show up for our baby." Their daughter was born on a snowy December evening, 3 weeks before her due date. One minute Willow was fine, and the next her water broke all over the kitchen floor. Mitchell drove to the hospital like a maniac while trying to stay calm, and somehow they made it in one piece. Labor was long and hard. Mitchell held Willow's hand through every contraction, wiped her face with a cool cloth, and told her how strong she was until his voice went hoarse. 22 hours after they arrived at the hospital, Meredith Grace Montgomery entered the world screaming at the top of her tiny lungs. "She is perfect," Mitchell breathed, tears streaming down his face as the nurse placed his daughter in his arms. "Willow, look at her." "I made her," Willow said tiredly, but she was smiling. "Well, we made her. Team effort." Meredith had dark hair like her mother and blue eyes like Mitchell. She was 6 pounds, 2 ounces of pure miracle, and Mitchell fell completely in love for the second time in his life. Fatherhood was terrifying and amazing and completely exhausting. Mitchell learned to function on 3 hours of sleep and cold coffee. He changed diapers and gave bottles and walked the floors at 3 in the morning with a crying baby against his shoulder. He understood now why parents talked about love that was all-consuming, the kind that made you willing to do absolutely anything. Willow went back to work after 12 weeks, and Mitchell adjusted his schedule so they were both home more. They hired a nanny, but made sure at least one of them was home for dinner every night. They traded off baby duty, supported each other through the hard days, and celebrated every milestone like it was the greatest achievement in human history. "She smiled at me," Mitchell said one day, bursting into Willow's office. "An actual smile, not gas." "She has been smiling for a week," Willow said with amusement. "Where have you been?" "I thought those were gas smiles," he said defensively. "This one was different. She looked right at me and smiled." "Our daughter is brilliant," Willow agreed, "just like her parents." On Meredith's first birthday, they threw a party at their house with both families. Alina showed up with a handmade quilt. Willow's brothers brought toys that made noise and drove Mitchell crazy. Patricia baked a cake shaped like a teddy bear. The house was full of love and laughter and chaos. Mitchell watched Willow help Meredith blow out her single candle, both of them covered in frosting, and felt overwhelming gratitude. 2 years ago, he had been alone in his office, married to his work, convinced success was measured in dollars and deals. Now he had a wife who challenged and loved him, a daughter who owned his heart completely, and a life that felt full in ways money could never buy. "What are you thinking about?" Willow asked later, after the guests had left and Meredith was asleep upstairs. "How different my life is," Mitchell said honestly. "How much better." "Better than being a workaholic CEO with no personal life," she teased, better than anything I could have imagined," he said seriously. "You saved me, Willow, from turning into someone who achieved everything and had nothing that mattered." "You saved me too," she said softly. "I was heading down the same path. We saved each other." "Best partnership I ever entered into," he said, pulling her close. "Better than the Premier Properties acquisition. Way better." As the years passed, their life settled into a rhythm that was busy but balanced. Mitchell and Daniel ran Montgomery Development together, splitting responsibilities and playing to each other's strengths. The company continued to grow, but Mitchell made sure it never consumed him the way it once had. He coached Meredith's soccer team, attended every school event, took family vacations where his phone stayed off. He also slowly rebuilt a relationship with his father. It was not easy or quick, but Richard stayed sober and kept showing up. They met for coffee once a month, and eventually those meetings turned into dinners. When Meredith was 3, Mitchell finally introduced her to her grandfather. Watching Richard hold his granddaughter with tears in his eyes, Mitchell felt something he had not expected: forgiveness. "Thank you," Richard said quietly, "for giving me a second chance." "We all deserve second chances," Mitchell said, "if we are willing to do the work." Willow got pregnant again when Meredith was 4. This time it was planned and the pregnancy was easier. Their son, Marcus Grant Montgomery, was born on a summer morning with considerably less drama than his sister. He was laid back where Meredith was energetic, quiet where she was loud. They balanced each other perfectly. "2 kids," Mitchell said, holding Marcus while Meredith climbed all over him. "We have 2 kids." "We are officially outnumbered," Willow agreed. "Are you having regrets?" "Not even a little bit," he said. "This is everything I never knew I wanted." Montgomery Development celebrated its 20th anniversary when Marcus was 2 and Meredith was 6. Mitchell stood at the podium during the gala event, looking out at the hundreds of employees who had helped build the company, and felt profound pride. 20 years ago, I started this company in a rented office with a dream and a lot of determination," he said. "I worked around the clock because I believed success meant never stopping, never resting, never letting anyone down, and we built something incredible together." He paused, finding Willow in the crowd. She was holding Marcus, Meredith beside her in a fancy dress. "But I learned something important along the way," he continued. "Success is not just about what you build professionally. It is about who you build your life with. It is about the relationships you nurture and the love you give, and the moments you do not miss because you were too busy chasing the next deal. My wife taught me that. She walked into my office years ago and changed everything. She made me want to be more than just a CEO. She made me want to be a man worthy of her love." There was applause, and Willow was crying, and Mitchell knew he would remember this moment for the rest of his life. When Meredith was 8 and Marcus was 4, they bought a lake house in Michigan. It became their escape, the place they went on weekends and holidays to just be a family. Mitchell taught both kids to fish, though Meredith had more patience for it than Marcus. They had bonfires and made s'mores and told stories. Eleanor came to visit often, her health good and her happiness evident. Richard came too, slowly becoming part of their lives in a way that felt natural. "I never thought I would have this," Richard said one evening as they sat on the dock watching the kids play in the water. "A son who forgave me. Grandchildren, a second chance at being part of a family." "You earned it," Mitchell said. "By staying sober, by showing up, by proving you meant it." "I almost threw it all away," Richard said quietly. "The gambling, the drinking, I lost so many years to that addiction." "But you are here now," Mitchell pointed out. "That is what matters." On their 10th wedding anniversary, Mitchell took Willow back to Navy Pier. They rode the Ferris wheel again, just like they had on their first date and when he proposed. 10 years, Willow said, leaning against him. Can you believe it? Best 10 years of my life, Mitchell said. Even the hard parts, especially the hard parts, she corrected. That is when we figured out how strong we are together. You are going to break my heart, Mitchell said suddenly, echoing her words from so long ago. When we are old and gray and one of us has to say goodbye first, that is going to destroy me. Then I guess we better make every day count, Willow said, kissing him. So when that day comes, we have no regrets. No regrets, he agreed. I can promise you that. They watched Chicago glow beneath them, the city where they had met and fallen in love and built a life. Two people who had almost missed each other, who had almost let fear and work and responsibility keep them apart. But they had taken the risk, had been brave enough to reach for something more. I love you, Mitchell said, more than I could ever put into words. I love you too, Willow said. Thank you for protecting my heart, always, he promised, with my life. And as the Ferris wheel carried them down once more, Mitchell Montgomery knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be. Not in a boardroom or closing a deal, but here with the woman who had saved him from a life of empty success. The woman who had given him everything that truly mattered. They had built an empire together, not just in commercial real estate, but in love and family and the kind of happiness that could not be measured in dollars. And that, Mitchell thought as he held his wife close, was the greatest success of all.